What's going on, people? Welcome back to another episode of the FF Ballbusters podcast. My name is Will. That's my co-host Eric, and today we're going with another mock draft. We're going to be using Chad Reuter's 3-round mock draft that he posted on NFL.com, I believe, yesterday. So this one's going to include some landing spots. Also going to have some trades involved too. So this one's going to get a little bit spicy. But before we get into that, Eric, you got anything for the people?
Yeah, man. One, just big shout out to you guys for all the support that we've been getting as of late. As always, we do appreciate it, but we want to keep it going. So if you guys are still enjoying the content, please let us know by leaving a like on the video, hitting that subscribe button, and also hitting that notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our latest releases. And then just to add some more context to what Will was saying, we are doing a 2-round, half PPR, super flex, half point tight end premium mock draft with landing spots as Will alluded to from the NFL.com mock draft. I do want to acknowledge, is it the most realistic mock draft we've ever seen? No, not necessarily. But like Will said, it's fun, it's different, it includes trades, which spices things up. And the whole point of these mock drafts is to serve as an exercise in like how much landing spots actually impact our player evaluation. So regardless of how realistic you think it is, it still serves that purpose. And nobody gets mock drafts right anyway, so how unrealistic could it really be?
Yeah.
But we're going to have fun with this one, and I'm ready to get into it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and switch us over to Sleeper. Shout out to Sleeper. And we're going to get this one kicked off. I've got the 101. It's just as easy as it's always been, honestly. It's going to be Caleb Williams. In this mock draft, he goes to the Bears first overall. And yeah, there's not really much to really say we haven't said before. He's the 101. Going to stay the 101 for this one.
Yeah, no doubter. At the 102, I'm actually going to take his teammate, in what was a shocking trade up in this mock draft. Marvin Harrison Jr. goes 103 because the Bears trade back up from the 9 spot with the Patriots, and so we get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison paired up together right off the rip here. Another no doubter in this situation. He's been the 102 for a long time, and especially if he gets this pairing with Caleb Williams, I couldn't be more excited.
Absolutely. And at the 103, I'm going back to the quarterback I'm going with Jaden Daniels, who went to the Commanders second overall in this draft pick. It's kind of what I hope they do in real life. But yeah, I enjoy this pick. I think he's going to be great, especially under Cliff Kingsbury. Could be a very interesting offense. So Jaden Daniels for sure right there.
Absolutely. And then we get to the 104. Again, question how realistic this possibility is, but I am going to go with Malik Neighbors, who ends up in Arizona after they traded down with Denver from their 4 spot. They still get the wide receiver that they're interested in, but all the way down at the number 12 pick. Again, I'm not so sure that Malik Neighbors is going to last that long, but in this scenario, I'd be very happy with him paired up with Kyler Murray. And as I've been saying throughout this draft process, Malik Neighbors continues to rise up my draft board. He's getting closer and closer to Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's really splitting hairs between the two, to be honest with you, like who I think is the best. So yeah, getting him at the 104, I feel like is a great spot.
Absolutely. And looking at the 105, I'm going to go with Brock Bowers to the Chargers in this one. I just really like Brock Bowers as a player, and I like him with the Chargers. I feel like Mike Williams is on the way out. Keenan Allen starting to get older. Austin Eckler also looking like he's on the way out as well, so that's going to free up a ton of targets for this team. And if they go to Brock Bowers, that's just going to be good football right there. So Brock Bowers is the 105, and especially in tight end premium, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I love that. And then I will stop the slide. We'll go back to the quarterback. I'll take Drake May. Interesting landing spot here. Like I mentioned with the Malik Neighbors trade, the Broncos trade all the way up to the 104 in order to draft Drake May. Right? I want to make sure I got that. Yeah, they trade up to the 104, not the 103. So they do secure their quarterback of the future. A lot of question marks around what that team is going to look like, who's going to be sticking around in the wide receiver core, if they're going to bring in anybody new through free agency or through the draft. If they're making this trade up, obviously they're going to be lacking some draft capital, at least in the short term. So we'll have to see what his supporting cast looks like. But we believe in Drake May. And I think in a Sean Payton offense, he could absolutely succeed. I just want to see what that situation looks like going forward.
Absolutely agree with all those sentiments right there. And for the 107, I'm sticking with the quarterbacks. I'm going to go J.J. McCarthy, who got drafted to the Raiders 13th overall. I just think that, under Antonio Pierce, this team did look really good. I'm trying to wash away the Josh McDaniels Raiders team because that was a really bad team. But, towards the end of the season, they started to get things together, and they were doing it under Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy Garoppolo, some sort of mixture of those two. And I'm confident that J.J. McCarthy is better than both of them, especially because I feel like not worldwide, but, fantasy conception of J.J. McCarthy has gotten better over time. People are starting to realize that he does make throws when he needs to, and hopefully this team is able to utilize that, especially with Devontae Adams. If he were to stay, I'm not saying he will because we don't know what's going to happen with that situation, but I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be good in this spot.
Yeah, I like that, and especially with the draft capital that he's getting, it makes a lot of sense in a super flex draft. Take him up here. The only guy that I would have at least argued between at that spot is the guy I'm going to take here. It's going to be Rome Odunze, who ends up getting drafted by the New Orleans Saints at the 14th overall pick. Let me put him in there. I think him and McCarthy are definitely in the same discussion there if they end up in the situations that they do in this mock. Michael Thomas probably on the way out. Chris Olave obviously still going to be there, but not much else in that receiver core to speak of. So I think that Olave and Odunze could be a good pairing. Question is, who's going to be throwing him the football? It seems like Derek Carr for the foreseeable future, which isn't great. So I understand going McCarthy over him, but I still like Odunze's talent here.
Yeah, I think the talent will win out at the end of the day. And I'm sticking with the wide receivers of the 109. I'm going to Brian Thomas Jr., who got drafted by Jacksonville in this draft. I just really do like that landing spot, especially if Calvin Ridley is on the way out. It just kind of clears a lot of room for him to work alongside Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram. Why am I forgetting the other dude right now? Why am I forgetting? Wow. I blanked on that completely. Zay Jones. You don't
remember Zay Jones.
It is what it is. But it's going to be, he would be able to lead and, immediately step in and get a lot of volume in that offense. Probably be like the 1B to Christian Kirk's 1A in terms of receivers. So I like him here in this spot, especially as a red zone threat. He kind of proved himself to be one in college, and that's something this team has kind of been missing a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's definitely got a big role to fill if he were to end up in that position with the Jaguars. We'll go to the 110. I'm going to go back to the quarterback well again. We got a quarterback-heavy first round here. But the Minnesota Vikings traded up with the Carolina Panthers at the beginning of the second round to take Bo Nix. Again, it's been kind of a roller coaster of an evaluation, at least for me, in terms of how I feel about him, the player. But this landing spot couldn't really get any better. You go to a great coaching staff with one of the best wide receiver cores in the game. We're talking about Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson once he comes back healthy. It's hard to really beat that. So yeah, give me Bo Nix in a super flex league with such a good team around him.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I'm going back to the wide receivers, and I'm going with Keon Coleman here. Somebody who we haven't been huge on, but in this draft, Kansas City traded up with Green Bay to the 125 to draft Keon Coleman. And I feel like if that were to happen in real life, one, they would value him as a player, and two, we kind of all saw that Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes was doing everything on his own out there, really, and they need receivers. It's something they desperately need. So he would be stepping into a situation where he would immediately get volume, and he would be one of those guys who at least could make plays for this team. At least that's what they would hope. I feel like that's why they would draft him in the first place, to try to make him into a playmaker. In terms of him as a player himself, you guys can check out our other videos to see what we really do think about Keon Coleman as a player. But with this landing spot, it's kind of tough to ignore. And with this draft capital, it's tough to ignore.
Yeah, the draft capital especially. I'm still skeptical. I think there's definitely a role for him to fill there. Like there's not that big body outside receiver or red zone threat, so he could fill that. I don't know, man. I don't know how successful he's going to be. But like you said, hard to ignore with the draft capital and getting paired with the best quarterback on the planet. Yeah. Not a bad spot to be. Let's round out the first round here. I think I'm going to take the first running back of the group. Not the first one drafted, but the first running back that we've taken in the mock here. It's going to be Jonathan Brooks going to the New York Giants at the beginning of the second round. I'm sure we'll get into it here as we move into the second round of our mock. But there was a little bit of a run in the NFL.com mock draft on running backs here. I found him. There he is. in the second round, which is a little bit unexpected from what we think is probably going to happen in real life. But I think it would be exciting. I think it would be a big deal for your dynasty rookie drafts, and I think that's going to push a lot of running backs up the board here very shortly.
I absolutely agree. And I feel like if the Giants are to draft the Jonathan Brooks in the second round, I don't know what that spells exactly for Saquon. That situation is weird.
He's
Yeah, it's looking like he's
he's
out of
out
there.
anyway. The latest that I've heard is that they're going to try to tag him again, and Saquon's not dealing with that again. So it might be like a tag and trade type deal, but I doubt he's coming back to New York.
Yeah, I agree. And if he were to step in and immediately get the keys, speaking about Jonathan Brooks, I'm excited about that. I think he's going to be great at the next level.
Absolutely.
And then we're looking at the first pick in the second round at this point, the 201. And I'm looking at Adonai Mitchell, who got drafted by the Commanders in this draft. Just like a guy who could be one of those big body route runners for the Commanders, something they've been kind of lacking for a little bit. He'd be paired up with Jaden Daniels in this draft as well, somebody he can grow alongside of. So I feel like that is just exciting down the road and somebody who can make an impact pretty early on as well.
Yeah, I do like that. I love the draft capital there, and I think the pairing is good. I'm a little bit more concerned as of late with Adonai Mitchell, just diving more into his statistical profile. On tape, I think he shows a ton of flashes of really impressive ability, and this is something that we've talked about in other videos as well, so I won't go too in depth. But the range of outcomes with him, I think, is pretty wide, so it's
Yeah,
definitely risky. But like you said, the supporting cast, him coming in with a good rookie quarterback, I do like that a lot, and I'd be willing to take him in the second round there. Let's go to the 202. Where am I going to go with this one? This one might be a little bit surprising, but this guy did get first round draft capital in this mock, which I thought was pretty impressive. Jatavian Sanders gets picked near the end of the first round by the Miami Dolphins. Um, Outside of Tyreek, at least in the wide receiver core, Jalen Waddle has been dealing with injury constantly. So he's, only half available, it seems like. They need playmakers outside of Tyreek on that offense. And I think especially kind of in that short to intermediate area where that tight end can be a safety blanket for Tua, I think that can be really beneficial for that team. And in a tight end premium league, I'd be more than happy to take him here at the beginning of the second.
absolutely agree. I think he'd be a great receiver for them out there. Taking a look at the 203, I'm going with Xavier Worthy, who in this draft, he went to the not Denver, why am I saying that? Buffalo Bills. He went to the Bills. 60th overall, second round draft capital. I think that's going to be valuable. I think he's going to be replacing Gabe Davis, who I feel like coming into the league, Xavier Worthy is going to be a little bit better than Gabe Davis, especially when it comes to separating and, just doing the things that he needs to do out there to get open. So I think he will be able to make an impact. This team's a little weird because Stephon Diggs hasn't really been, hitting with Josh Allen as much as he used to. So there's a lot of room left to fill out this sort of passing offense. And I feel like if Xavier Worthy were to get involved in that, he could make a lot happen early on as well.
Absolutely. No, it's the same direction that I would have gone. I do just want to mention, not that it's completely related, but Gabe Davis, uh, he's actually a really good run blocker, which Xavier Worthy isn't going to do as well.
Yeah.
For fantasy purposes, Xavier Worthy is going to be better, in my opinion. But just kind of note, Gabe Davis is a free agent this offseason. Like you said, he's probably out the door. I think he's going to get more money than a lot of people expect because of that blocking ability. So just to throw it out there, don't be fooled necessarily by how much money he gets. I don't think that means he's going to be a fantasy contributor, but he is going to contribute to an NFL roster, maybe in a different regard. That's
Absolutely, yeah.
And then let's go to the 204. A guy that's been rising up my draft board or my kind of rankings as of late. It's going to be Jalen Wright, the running back that goes to the Dallas Cowboys in the second round. Where is he on this list? He's a little bit further down, isn't he? All right, so we looked through. Apparently, Sleeper doesn't have Jalen Wright in their player pool, so I'm gonna do a little placeholder. Josh Williams, pretend that's Jalen Wright. Not sure why they don't have him, but anyway, Jalen Wright goes to the Dallas Cowboys with the 56th pick in the second round. Extremely explosive. He's going to run so fast at the combine. We're probably going to see a 4.3 type number. Good contact balance. Not much in the way of the receiving game, and I think that's the only thing that's kind of holding him back. But I do love this landing spot. Almost any running back that gets taken by the Dallas Cowboys, I get pretty excited about. So definitely excited to see what he can do there in Dallas.
Absolutely agree. And if they were to retain Tony Pollard as well, I think that pick gets even more exciting, to be honest. Like just them having the two running backs going back to that kind of system, I think that's really exciting for them right there.
Yeah.
Taking a look at this is the 205, right? Looking at the 205, I'm going back to the wide receivers. This is one that's going to be a little bit weirder, but because he got the draft capital, I'm really going for it. I'm going for Johnny Wilson, who got drafted by
Oh
the
boy.
Indianapolis Colts at 46 overall in the second round. Now, why am I going Johnny Wilson? He's 6'7", and people like to talk about Anthony Richardson and accuracy issues. It's really hard to miss a guy who's 6'7" at the end of the day. And maybe that's kind of what they were thinking about when they went with this mock draft pick. I don't know. But I don't know. That something about the prospect of a 6'7" wide receiver in this offense just gets me a little bit excited. It stands to be seen what they do with Michael Pittman, but I'm pretty sure they're going to retain Michael Pittman and keep him there. So he should be running alongside him. And I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of space for Johnny Wilson in this offense, especially at 6'7". So it would just be exciting to see, to be honest with you. That's why I'm going for this pick. It's not the most logic behind it, but draft capital's there, and he's 6'7". Did I mention that?
Did you mention that? Yeah, I mean, the Colts have proven year over year that they can't resist the urge to put together a basketball team. I think sometimes they forget what sport they're playing,
Yeah.
but it's worked out to them or for them to an extent. So we'll see what Johnny Wilson can do there. I don't mind it. Let's go to the middle of the second round here, the 206. I think I'm going to go with Troy Franklin. He gets drafted by the Baltimore Ravens near the end of the second round. I think the 60th overall pick. Don't love the landing spot. We've seen, multiple receivers now end up in Baltimore and just not really pan out the way that we had hoped. Rashad Bateman being one of them, Marquise Brown not really ever reaching his fantasy potential, and Zay Flowers is there now, and he's actually been doing the best of those three. So him having to split touches isn't, the most attractive landing spot, but I love Troy Franklin, the talent, and I think that team could absolutely use another playmaker as a pass catcher. So hopefully he can find a way to produce for fantasy.
I like that pick right there. I had him in a very similar spot. Moving to the 207, I am going with Trey Benson in this spot, who got drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the third round, 85th overall. Now, how do I feel about Trey Benson? I feel like he's stepping into a spot where we're really uncertain about Nick Chubb's future. In the off chance that Nick Chubb comes back 100% and he gets that same role in this offense, Trey Benson is then relegated to sort of a Kareem Hunt type of role, right? Where that's very valuable in this offense still. I feel like Trey Benson would step in. He would already be better than Jerome Ford, so I'm not super worried about Jerome Ford and him competing for touches. Maybe just all being a veteran alone, that might be a reason why he gets the nod early on. But I feel like it's one of those situations where as the season goes on, Trey Benson's role gets bigger and bigger in this offense. He'd be the most well-rounded running back on this team immediately. So I think that he would see the field a lot early on.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I did originally have him a little bit later in the second round, but I think you made a good case there to take him here. Extremely talented, and depending on Chubb's situation, could see volume, fairly early on in the season. So I like that a lot. We'll go to the 208. I think I will finally pull the trigger here and go back to the quarterback well. Michael Penix Jr. does get taken by the Seattle Seahawks. In fact, they traded up, I believe. Yeah, they traded up with the Philadelphia Eagles in the middle of the second round there to secure potentially their quarterback of the future. I'm not sure what Geno's situation is going to look like. I do believe they have an out in his contract this offseason. Whether they take advantage of that or whether they keep him for one more year, let Penix sit, we'll have to see. But another situation where he would walk in with a great wide receiver core around him, DK and JSN for the long term, Tyler Lockett in the near term, also a great running back stable, and an improving offensive line over there as well. So not the most exciting in terms of fantasy upside, but he's got a lot of weapons, so it's hard to ignore this deep into the second round.
I definitely agree. It's the future is a little bit less uncertain with him. Just like you said, I don't know how soon he would play, and that's the only thing that kind of held us
Right.
back from picking him. But I do like him
Yep.
in that landing spot for sure. And then taking a look at the 209, I'm gonna go with Marshawn Lloyd, who got drafted by the Tampa Bay
Hell
Buccaneers,
yeah.
102nd overall in the third round. I just feel like he steps in. He is the best running back on this team pretty much immediately. Rashad White, of course, is going to get the nod when it comes to the receiving game early on. He's already proven himself there. But Marshawn Lloyd is someone who could also get it done. He's great in the open field. He's great at making people miss tackles, things that really just translate extremely well in fantasy football. So, yeah, I like Marshawn Lloyd in this landing spot, especially with how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers kind of emerged this season.
Absolutely. No, I like that a lot. I'm also going to go back to the running back position. I'm less excited about this one, but draft capital kind of dictates it for me. I'm going to go with Blake Corum. He goes with, I believe, let me check again. Yeah, he was the second pick in the second round, so incredibly high draft capital, at least compared to expectation. I don't love the landing spot. In this mock draft, they don't take a quarterback, so we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for them. They still have Ramondre Stevenson under contract, so there's a lot of question marks there. Um, but I mean, if they don't have a quarterback, they're probably going to be fairly run heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Ramondre, I believe this might be the last year on his contract. I'd have to confirm that, but he's either 1 or 2 years away from that. Um, it's just hard for me to ignore top of the second round draft capital, like for any running back, not just Blake Corum. That's pretty elite. And so yeah, it's just I can't stray too far away from that at the back end of the second round.
Yeah, and we also just have no idea how this New England team is going to look now. It's just new look New England this year.
Yeah.
So I like the pick. Like you said, the draft capital kind of speaks for itself that they would use him a lot if they picked him here. So I love that as well. I like that pick. The next one I'm looking at right here for the second to last pick, I'm looking at Ladd McConkey. Now, this is a weirder one because he ended up in Detroit in the second round, 61st overall. The only issue I've got with Ladd McConkey here in Detroit is that I feel like in terms of the role he would play, I feel like it's already kind of filled out by two different players, not even just one different player. I feel like Sam Laporta, very similar role to what Ladd McConkey would have, and obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, similar role to what Ladd McConkey would have. It would really just give them the real third option they've been looking for because Jameson Williams hasn't really been able to get it done for them. Now, how much is there to be found in that? I feel like there's still some good value to be found. Detroit is a pretty high-powered offense. They've been getting things done, moving the ball down the field. They retained Ben Johnson, so the offense should still be clicking on all cylinders. So I would be excited about him. It's tough to get super excited, which is why I feel like he fell back here at the back end of the second.
Yeah, like you said, the role would be tough to define considering he's got two superior players doing similar things. But when you have Jared Goff as your long-term
Yeah,
starting option,
he's keeping it short.
that's the only area of the field that he can really hit. So yeah, why not fill it with really good, talented players that can separate? So I understand that move there for Detroit. And then the last pick here in our 2-round mock draft, I think I'm going to go with another running back. So running back heavy in the second round here. I'm going to go with Audric Estime, actually. He gets drafted by the Arizona Cardinals in the third round. James Conner does still have 1 year left on his contract, and he's been great. You know, we've had a history on this channel of trying to count him out, and we continue to be wrong. So I don't want to do it again. It's very possible that he could have another good season and another healthy season. But even if we have to wait a year for Estime, which typically isn't a great strategy with running backs. You want to see them, start off hot in their first season. But I do think he'll get more involved as the season goes along. But I think this is just an up-and-coming team in Arizona. Kyler, I'm really happy about. Obviously, they bring in Malik Neighbors. Their offensive line is improving. They got a lot of draft capital this year. So for him to be added to that roster that I believe in, I'm just happy with that landing spot.
I absolutely agree with that. I had him at the back end of my second as well. I just think, going forward, he could be very exciting. And he's also kind of tested pretty well for the running backs as well. He's been kind of rising up my board, so I like that.
Absolutely.
And that is we both step. When I step, you step, we step. So that's going to go ahead and round out our mock draft. We only do it 10 rounds for you guys. I did want to talk about some other people in this draft, I guess, that got a little bit, not overlooked, but I feel like we should at least mention them. Reasons why we didn't draft him, at least in the second round. We got Braylon Allen, who went to the Green Bay Packers, and that just looks like A.J. Dillon all over again to me. So not really attractive
Bro,
right there.
mind meld. I was gonna say the exact same thing. It's
Yeah.
like, are we just gonna repeat and see the same guy in the same backfields? Don't love that.
And Xavier Leggett went to Cincinnati in the third round. And if that's the replacement for T. Higgins, I am not excited about that whatsoever. And if T. Higgins stays, I'm even less excited about it. Anybody else you wanted to mention in this draft?
I think Ben Sinnott deserves a shout out. He gets drafted by the San Francisco 49ers at the back end of the second round. So one, better draft capital than I expected. And two, if George Kittle is anywhere near the end of his career, that's a fantastic landing spot for him to be in, where, an offense that utilizes tight ends very heavily. And I think that, he's not George Kittle, but he's fairly athletic and been really productive in college. So I think he could fill a good role for that team.
Absolutely. But that's going to go ahead and round it out. You guys want to check out the rest of the mock draft? It should be linked below, so you guys can just go and check that out and see what Chad Reuter did with the rest of it. If you disagree with any of the picks we've got, sound off in the comments down below. Let us know what you think about this mock. It was really interesting, especially with all the trades, so not sure how realistic it was, but it was a fun one to put together a mock draft for. And make sure you guys do all that great YouTube stuff like Eric said at the beginning. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That way you know when we drop all of our latest videos. And like I said before, sound off in the comments. Let us know what you think. But before we go, Eric, you got anything else for the people?
Yeah, just before we get out of here, if you guys could please check out some of the links that we have down in the description below to our partners over at CMG Choice Music Group if you're interested in some cool music. And also if you're interested in some apparel, t-shirts, hoodies, hats, anything like that, we also have a link to Do Numbers, one of the hoodies I'm wearing right now. If you're interested in any of that stuff, we do have discount codes down there below that you can take advantage of at checkout. So yeah, support us, support our sponsors. That would mean a lot to us. But I think that's all we got. So as always, if you stuck with us until the end, we love you. And we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.
Peace.
Is that Chris?